going on, y'all? KMBest here with, of course, Lambie Series, whose channel you're watching this on. And we are, first things first, congratulations on winning Conquerors. We'll go into a little bit more detail on that on the 8th topic here. I just want everyone to know, he asked for it to be the 8th topic, not me. I don't want anyone going to the comments being like, yo, Cam, why'd you make him talk about that last? No, that was not my idea. That was his idea. He wanted to talk about Blob first. So Lambie, 6/4, Blob, merges with all the cards remaining in your deck. What you got?
All right, so I had quite a nice tweet about Blob, but I think I should reiterate it here because I think it's super important. So firstly, when I saw Blob in the data mines, I was like, okay, this card is gonna be really good. And I think Blob is really good right now for almost exactly the reasons that I thought it was gonna be, which is firstly, Blob is generally a big dude. Like he's just gonna be quite big in general. Yeah, it's like KM Blob, but not as I don't anyway. But anyway, so basically Blob is the amazing thing about Blob is that he's gonna be generally big, but the thing is he's strong because your opponent doesn't exactly know how big, right? So let me give you some examples. Like in the old Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster meta, you know that Shuri in the Red Skull into Taskmaster is like 28 plus 28. You knew that, like it's for a fact. But the thing about Blob is that on turn 6, you are like, okay, so if I lose to a Taskmaster, I retreat. But if I lose to a Blob, do I lose to a Blob?
Yep.
What if the Blob is 620? Alright, I guess I can shift Werewolves a few times and beat 620. But what if it's 621? I don't think I can shift my werewolf that many times and I lose. So the thing about Blob is it's very scary at like mid to high levels of play because you don't have any exact idea how exactly big it is because you need to track a few things, right? Track the stuff in their deck. You can do that with deck tracker. Then you realize there's also cards in their hand. So what if they've drawn only the small stuff and left the big stuff in the deck? But what if they drawn the big stuff and left the small stuff in the deck? And it's an 8-cuber game. Do I retreat for 4? Do I YOLO for 8? This kind of things matter a lot, especially when like MMR, snap points, tournaments are on the line. You can't make that informed decision, and personally, I'm very scared because like if I have to face a Blob for 8 cubes in a tournament with like tournament pressure and like all that kind of stuff as well, how do I reliably like think if I should stay in this game? I think Blob like allows you to like make some snaps and force your opponent to retreat, whether you actually have a big Blob or not. Because like, let's be real here, half the time it's so difficult to calculate Blob's exact stat range. So I think this is the power of the Blob in general right now.
Yeah, what you're fundamentally getting at is the power of asymmetric information. You know, and I also would point out, another deck that leverages this very well is Loki. Loki knows what they got from you, and then that means that you don't know if what they got from you is good, but they do. And it's the same principle here, right? Like, this is not, I'm not saying like, okay, this is a core component of every good deck, because it's not. We've had some decks that are extremely powerful, that are very telegraphed. Shuri's a great example. Broodabs is a great example. They're just saying, can you beat this? But if you get it for free, it's really good to have some asymmetric information where your opponent just doesn't exactly know what you're going to be doing or how big it is. And Blob being asymmetric is a key piece of that. Now, one other thing that Blob does that I'm interested in is like it blanks Darkhawk, but not in a way that unfortunately, at least as far as I can tell, will force Darkhawk out of the meta, and definitely not in a way that will force the current best shell for Darkhawk, the Annihilus Bounce shell, out of the meta. So let's get to that. Lambie insisted that we name this topic Cube Machine. Now, this is because what we're talking about here is the Darkhawk Annihilus Bounce list that I had the auto builder build for me, and then it turned out it was very, very good. Now, we gave that list to Lambie. He got it into Conquerors, and he described it as, in his testing, the highest cube rate deck that he had, the one that he played in order to get a cushion during the first hour of gameplay. I think a lot of the coverage of Conquerors is going into his Loki list, where, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you are here to do that, but my read on it is that is much more of a comfort pick for you than something you are 100% confident is better than the Darkhawk Annihilus list.
Right. I agree with you on the fact that it's a very huge comfort pick for me when I play Loki. But the difference between Loki and the Annihilus Hawk Bounce deck is that in my testing, the Annihilus Hawk Bounce deck is firstly it's a bit easier to play, and secondly, the rate I gain cubes with that deck is really, really quickly. That's why I chose it as my pick for Conquerors during the first hour of the gameplay, which is like very underrated. Like it's like undercovered. Like a lot of people keep talking about me winning with Loki, me winning with Loki, right? But that was only something I did in the later stages where I didn't really have to play so fast because like my position was semi-secure. I just wanted to like keep compounding the wins. But in order to gain cubes really quickly, and this is very relevant to players that are like playing on ladder, right? Because sometimes you just want to gain cubes quickly. It feels good to gain cubes quickly, right? So the Annihilus Hawk bounce deck has okay, so we need to address this and address like the Blob thing as well, because Blob
Okay.
obviously hurts Dark Hawk, right? But
Yes.
the thing about this deck is it wouldn't be kicked out of the meta even with Blob, because the thing is the bounce engine is in this deck is the one that's actually hard carrying this deck,
Yeah.
because a lot of the games are won because this deck on average generates 2 demons from Hood easily. Like the good hands generate 3 demons from Hood. I've done 4 before, but like the good hands generate 3 demons from Hood, which is 318 worth of power. On average, it's 212 worth of power, of extra power, by the way, excluding the Hawk, excluding the Wolf, excluding your Nico Forge or whatever buffs that you have. So like this deck outputs power. It's like all bounce, right? Like on the final turn, you put stuff wherever you want to put stuff. And obviously, if you know that they are a Blob deck, your Hawk is not meant to be either played or meant to win the game. So you kind of know this sometimes as well. So the flexibility of this Hawk Annihilus, that we haven't even talked about the Annihilus portion yet, because that's the more standard one, right? Just like Sentry Annihilus. That I don't really need to talk much about that, because that's just extra stuff as well that wins the game. So this deck has a lot of ways to win the. Oh, I forgot about Shadow King. That also wins the game. So basically, this deck has a lot of stuff that just wins the game, and you can choose where you want to put your stuff to just win the game. So it's very flexible, and when you play it on ladder, you'll realize that the cube rate is really, really high. And honestly, I think the most difficult part about this deck is, as usual, Werewolf moving left, right, or not moving at all. And then we'll cover a little bit about that later as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I have been pretty convinced this is the best deck in the game, and the weird thing about it is like people think of it as a Darkhawk deck, but it's like, no, dude. Okay,
No,
here's
it's
how you
not.
make it not a Darkhawk deck. You replace Rock Slide with Falcon, you replace Darkhawk with either Shang-Chi or Enchantress, and you replace Korg with literally any other disruptive one drop even, and it's like just as good, if not better. Like
Yeah.
it's a deck where it's like, oh no, you forced the Darkhawk out of my deck. It's like, that's not even really why this deck is good. I'm just playing him because it's a lot easier to play a big guy than it is to like figure out which tech card is good. So I just
Yeah.
figured it's easier to play Darkhawk. It's fine. You have to choose between Shang and Enchantress. Like, yeah, no, like it's the bounce shell, guys. It's the bounce
Yeah.
shell. That's what's doing it here. And that bounce shell is ridiculous. And I definitely just don't want to let it go by the wayside that's the deck that Lambie used in the most intensive ladder situation of Conquerors. A lot of people are going to be talking about Loki, and I think they're going to
Yes.
be missing the real story.
Yep. Sorry, I just want to add one more thing, which is this deck is really the one that I put my most faith in like speed grinding, which is why
Yeah.
I didn't bother playing Loki in my first 1 hour. Like that's a fact, because this one is faster. And
Yep.
also really when KM mentioned the whole like replace Dark Hawk thing, like I've won so many games with this deck just that you're going like Hawk and Black Widow and making them draw trash.
Yep.
Like and they draw trash and then you just start building stats. Like that has nothing to do with Dark Hawk.
Yeah,
That's just
like
rocks and
Darkhawk
bites.
is the worst card in Darkhawk decks a decent amount of time because he's the one that they can interact with. Like they could Shang-Chi him, right? They could Enchantress him. And it's like, I would play this card like you could be playing White Queen. Like, I don't think it would matter.
A little bit, yeah.
It's a day that ends in Y, and everyone's mad about Professor X. So one of the things that Blob's release has done is propel Thanos back into the spotlight for reasons that might seem a little opaque, but are actually pretty clear. The first is a lot of people think that Thanos loses to Darkhawk because of Darkhawk. It's actually because of the rocks, but that's neither here nor there. And Blob gets rid of the perceived weakness to Darkhawk. The second is that every so often, a finisher that's just really, really big shows up. And Thanos, as a deck that's built around Professor X on 4, tends to just be the best thing at utilizing whatever finisher that is, right? This was true with Alioth when Alioth came out, to the point that they nerfed Thanos before Alioth came out. They were like, we cannot let this happen, right? And then they just nerfed Thanos again, in terms of what they did to the Mind Stone, but like it's the same
Yeah.
dynamic with Blob, where it's like they release a big finisher, and what deck actually needs a big finisher more than the one that can lock up a lane for sure on previous turns of the game. And that's just how it goes, right? Like when you think about High Evo Hulk, he is the kind of card that was mostly played in lockdown decks, like because that he would lock up the lane. You'd already locked up one, you'd done a storm thing, you did whatever it is, you did your Spider-Man or whatever, and then you played your arbitrarily large high evolutionary Hulk. And now it's the same, but with Blob. And what deck is the best suited to do that in the current metagame? That is Thanos. That is still to say, I think it has a pretty poor matchup into Loki. I don't think I feel
Yeah,
that great
it
about it,
doesn't
but
change.
you can try to just be like, all right, well, they don't have Chavez anymore. It's going to be fine. I'll get away with it. I'll Professor X them or something, like they need good draws. There's a lot of air in the deck. It's fine. I'll live with it. But I think that, like, very specifically, Professor X is the reason why Thanos keeps getting nerfed. And I just, Free Soul Stone is where I'm going with this.
Yeah. Anyway, the Mind Stone nerf is actually quite significant because now you can't really play Nico in the deck because
I still play
then
Nico
you
in the deck. I would love to draw
I
Nico.
the thing is you lose the chance of drawing a stone that draws a card. So I'm not very keen on playing Nico in the
Only
deck
4 of the
anymore.
6 draw cards anyway.
Now it's 3 out of 6 with potentially drawing Nico. Okay, but yeah, anyway, Professor X, I feel like the problem with him is that like in a deck that plays like so many early 1-drops, aka stones, and one of the stones lets you drop the lockout card on 1 turn earlier than any other deck is it's very scary, right? Because like the most common pan out for Professor X in Thanos is just they go stone, 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 Jeff, whatever stuff, and then they just prof on 4 with like decent amount of stats on like certain lanes already, and you don't really know which lane they're gonna prof. And it's like as long as your deck is not also a early game like 1-drop stack, you can't keep up with the turn 4 prof, which of course Loki can, because firstly it's Loki, secondly it has a lot of 1-drops. So
Yeah.
so what Loki is like fine into turn 4 prof, but other than that, I guess Hawk Bounce is as well. But any other deck I think like cannot really keep up with the fact that you can go like little things into the turn 4 prof. So I would say this is really one of the reasons why any Thanos build that I build right now seems to want to auto include a Professor X because it just kind of fits. Like my latest Blob Thanos cook, which is not even really a cook, it's literally like removing 2 not so good cards for Blob and another thing. But like it's just like yeah, I mean it's a 12 card deck. So even Blob Thanos or whatever kind of like Thanos plus big dude deck, it's always about just closing out one lane, and then the other one is just solo with. It used to be solo with Dino, then we soloed with Eliav, then now you can solo with Blob. It's the same. Oh, there was a period of time we soloed with Leader as well, but like it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been the same for a while now, and I don't know. Revert at least one of the nerfs to Thanos, please. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Let's talk about Loki, though. This is the deck that got all the headlines, and it's one I think we're both a little more pessimistic on than the general perception seems to be. As far as I'm concerned, I think Loki is like a clear number 2, but what I'm interested in is how do we get it back to number 1? Because at this point, I think it's clear Loki is not the best use of the bounce shell. There's another deck that is better at doing that. So what can we look to hybridize with Loki to get him back to his former standard of power?
Well, firstly, I don't think you can play Blob because the deck is generally very small, and then like you don't really benefit from the Blob. In fact, if you steal Blob with Loki, you're not even that happy because it's not even that huge most of the time. Specifically Loki. Yeah. So the bounce shell is really best currently in the Hawk Annihilus bounce deck. Because it's really just cause like Hood and demons, and yeah, it's so much power. But for Loki particularly, I know you put it clearly at second. I put it at like to me it's tied for first, but it's the lesser choice right now in terms of speed of climbing and ease of play.
Do you know what they call tied for first but less?
Second, yeah. I know. But like, okay, no, I cannot comfortably put it at second because like my personal experience with the deck is just too good. So I'm gonna put it at like 1.5, which is like above 2 but not exactly 2. So let's just go with that. But yeah, no, I know we talked a bit about like we as in me and KM talked a bit off stream about like maybe hybridizing with like She-Hulk, Moon Girl stuff, maybe Dino. It's like old school Loki, but I don't know if that's powerful enough in the sense that like it might be too fair. Like if you go like Coulson, Quinjet, Moon Girl Dino, which I used to do, but like now it feels a bit like maybe too fair. Like it makes it like worse into the bounce stuff, but maybe better into the hard counter Shadow King stuff like Cerebro. So, toss up.
Yeah, my thought process was like, okay, what if our flex spots in the deck were like Rogue, Cosmo, Dino? And that
Okay.
way we have like the answers to their stuff. But we just have like a Dino over there. They can't Shadow King it. And if they were to Rogue it, we have the Cosmo if we need it. Cosmo's actually pretty good at preventing Shadow Kings anyway on the lane, like a collector lane.
Yeah.
Like it's just a thought process where I was like, I wonder if we can afford to do that and still play Werewolf. Because I don't think we can ever really cut Werewolf, but he's definitely not exactly going to be optimized in a shell with a Dino in it. And
Yes.
so it's just this awkward situation where the thing that has kept Loki afloat for so long is that he goes in the best points shell, right? He's a very easy fuse with Elsa. He was a very easy fuse with Werewolf.
Yes.
And now that's not true anymore. And so we need to find something else there, I think. So this is like an open call. Figure out what we can put in Loki because I feel like there's got to be something.
Another way of looking at it is also that like, because I don't think Loki doesn't work well with bounce anymore. It's just that there's like a better
Yes.
bounce thing, right? So maybe the conclusion is like, I mean, we don't really have to try and like make it better. Loki has been good for like too long anyway. Maybe the conclusion is that it is finally the second best bounce deck, and then we
Yeah.
just leave it at that. Yeah, that could just be it.
Okay. All right. You heard it here first. Let's talk about Havoc. 2-0. And at the end of your turn, he eats one of your energy permanently and gains 4 power. I have no idea what to do with this card. Like I look at him and I'm like, okay, so if I play him on turn 5, he's a 2/8, and that's good numbers. Is there a deck where I want to just play 5s? And it's like, okay, like Shuri maybe, but I'd never want to play another card on turn 5 then, right? I want to be playing my big guy on turn 5. And so then it's like, what deck wants to do what Havoc wants to do? Because the turn you play him, that's how much energy you have for the rest of the game. You're never gaining energy. You gain one at the beginning of the turn, but it's the one that he ate at the end of the last turn.
Yep.
And so it's like, this is like, you play him early enough, it's just the worst card ever. And that is compounded by the existence of Shadow King. Like, this is a card that I genuinely think they will eventually go back and add the text of Ebony Blade to. Like, where it's just
agreed.
like because getting that guy Shadow King must be the worst feeling in the entire game. Like, I don't really know what they were cooking with this guy. It is a card that I wish I could have played when Old Wave existed. And that is the only thing I can think of when I see it, is like, oh, dude, I would have loved to play a 2/8 with Wave. And I don't know how it's released in the current day. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what they're going for with it. It makes no sense. I have no idea.
Dude, this is just crazy because like actually the moment we started on this topic, right? And you were talking about the fact that it was like a 2/4 that sticks you at 5 energy if you play on turn 5. My first thought was like, if we had Old Wave,
Yes,
this was
dude,
so
it
sick.
should
That was
be
my first thought.
It would be so
that
good.
was
I would love to play a 2/8 with Old Wave. That would be so sick. Too bad they got rid of her.
It's like 3+2 into Doom, right? And then the 2/8 is there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
sick. That's like an actual use case, right? But then now
Yeah.
the thing is, like you said, and I totally agree. Like, this is the ultimate Shadow King food. Like, when they see this, right, every Shadow King is live and happy, and like they lost energy plus their 2/4 become 2/8 becomes 2/0, and it's like, I mean,
Actually, okay, if I'm not mistaken, Havoc happens at the end of the turn,
oh
which
yeah, so
means
it'll
he
be
will
it'll turn
be a
back to a
2/4.
2/4. It'll be a
Yes.
2/4, but still, you can't play a 6-drop, right?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that Havoc was there on 5. So yeah, this card really, like, some people in my community and like a few places have been telling me that playing it on turn 5 is okay, but like for this exact reason, it's like you don't really want to do that on turn 5, right? Because on
Yeah.
turn 5 there's like so many things you want to play. You want to play a Dino, you want to play a Vision, you want to play a like a lot of things basically. You want to play a Prof even sometimes. So Gamora, which is quite popular recently. So like you can play a lot of like better cards than Havoc, and playing Havoc early is just like not good. Yeah,
It's
just not
very
good.
bad.
It makes you lose the game. That's all I can
Yes.
say.
Speaking of monetization, people are mad that a bundle is really expensive right now. And I know I sound a little dismissive when I'm talking about it, but like that's actually what's happening. People are mad there's a $100 bundle that was data mined at a lower price. And it's like, One of the things that I've noticed in Marvel Snap recently is they have shifted pretty significantly towards monetizing these bundles with variants in them that people want. The Bast one is an example. They're like, all right, we need to monetize the variants now. Personally, I think that that's because they made actual card collection a little bit easier when they introduced spotlight caches compared to what it was before. This will only be compounded if and when they have announced a series drops announcement in the future, right? So if progression keeps getting easier, how do you as a company go to your boss and be like, look, here's how we're going to make up that money? And the answer seems to be monetizing much more heavily via cosmetics. And that can be just like the cosmetic rewards in the spotlight caches, the cosmetic rewards in whatever bundle you have. And I think that a lot of that anger at a very expensive variant or whatever is actually a little bit misguided, because it's like, well, that's actually, it might not be for you, but the person that's buying that is subsidizing the actual you getting cards, I feel like. And
Agree.
in as much as that can be made better, I think it probably should be. Like my opinion is basically, if they could fully monetize off cosmetics and not charge anything for progression, that would be way better. And so the more we move in that direction, the happier I am. As long as we keep actually moving in that direction. What we need to worry about is like, okay, well, they're monetizing heavily off cosmetics and also progression isn't getting better. So we're not getting anything out of this. But I do think that it's probably a reason, a direction that I generally approve of.
Yeah, I really think this whole spotlight cache thing has like whether people realize it or not, right? Like a lot of the discussion these days, every time before the new card releases, is like, oh, how many spotlights do I want to use?
Mm-hmm.
How many do I want to go for 8? Do I want to go for 4? Should I try with like my one cache or whatever? But the thing is, people are actively trying to get cards with their caches. They're
Yeah.
not complaining about, oh, I can't get the card, right? Like the discussion has shifted away from I can't get the card to how many should I use to try for the card. Because the thing is, they're not worried about not being able to get a card. They're just not worried about. They're just worried about how many they have to use.
Yeah.
It's a bit different right now. It's actually going in a kind of a good direction, but I don't even think many people realize that this is like good. Like they just So, and I also agree that like monetizing cosmetics is a good way forward instead of monetizing like card acquisition, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like the people that don't but want to buy this $100 cosmetic bundle will never buy it. The people that will, like at least me, like me and a few other people, like people that like willing
You
to
bought
spend.
it?
Which I bought the She-Hulk. Yeah, I bought the She-Hulk. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so.
I thought you bought the Kingpin Ghost
Oh
Rider
no,
one.
I haven't even looked at it yet, but yeah. So like the people that will be willing to spend on cosmetics probably will spend on cosmetics even if it's like a little bit more expensive, because we're already shown to be willing to spend, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Then the people that want to play for free completely or like more for free can play more for free because it's easier to get like the new cards from the caches and stuff. So yeah, I like this actually going forward.
Yeah, I just hope that like whatever announcement they have about series drops actually like, helps. That would be,
Hopefully, yeah. We
yeah.
don't know anything about that one yet, but like, you know,
Because
hopefully it
like
helps.
it's one of those things where it's like, I see the theoretical underpinnings, but right now we've gotten mostly just bloat in series 4 and 5. And it's like at some point we need to get those numbers down or the system will stop being better. And if you're doing that at
Yeah,
the same time as charging a bunch for cosmetics, it's like, well, we're not actually seeing the benefits of you charging a bunch for cosmetics. We're not getting subsidized the way we should be.
that's
And
true.
I do want more of that, I will say.
Agreed.
A lot of people are talking about a lot of nerfs, but I think both Lambie and I agree there is only one card that is seriously an issue at this point, and it's Werewolf by Night. He's a 317. So what would you do about him?
So this card is really interesting, like interesting in a weird way because like it needs a nerf, and it also can like you can also argue that it doesn't, because
Mhm.
the thing is, this is not a good card. Okay, it is a good card. This is not a good. This is not a simple good card. It is a difficult good card, which means that like to get the most mileage out of this card, you actually need to play well, because a lot of the power in this card is like moving it on the right place in the right turn, getting it to a certain stat line so you can dodge shank, so you can like get initiative with the card so it can move away to dodge shank and stuff like that, or dodge SK or whatever, just so you can have initiative. And like, okay, yes, it's a 317, it's like sometimes 320 as well, and like the with the right hands 321, but like the card is really good. Like the card itself is really, really good. But like I would say this card, what we can really do to make it take it down a peg a little bit, even though I don't think that honestly I don't think it will happen, but like I do want it to like maybe get a bit not so strong. Maybe 3-1 with the same ability makes sense. But if they change the ability to +1 only, I think the card
No,
dies,
that
by the
it
way.
dies. Yeah.
Yeah, it dies, right? So maybe 3-1 with the same ability. Low key is like quite a buff sometimes, because now you don't have to think too much about like it getting shanked, right? Because it can move one more time without you worrying that it will get shanked. So like that's the copium way of looking at it. But like I think in general, what I can think of is making this a 3-1 that like gains has the same ability. Oh, by the way, if you make this a 4-3, I think it's actually quite bad. So I
Yeah.
think 3-1 is fine.
So the thing about Werewolf is it's as balanced as any 317 can be, which is to say, right now
Yeah,
it
it's
is
weird.
very much held in check by Shang-Chi and Shadow King. I saw someone
Yeah,
on Twitter saying they should nerf Shadow King, and all I have to say to you right now is under no circumstances should you nerf
yeah.
Shadow King.
I don't think
He
it's
is what he is like holding his finger in the dam. He is preventing this whole thing from collapsing on us. Shadow King
yes,
is saving us all right now. Please do not nerf Shadow King unless you deal with like everything else that has green text first. Like that is
yes.
or green numbers on it first. That guy is a hero right now. He's so good. And I think that Werewolf is a big reason why he's that good. But also it's like there's a limit to how good, like this is also the Blob thing, right? There's a limit to how good one guy winning one lane can be, especially a guy that can be interacted with by Shadow King, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I have this giant, enormous guy and I've lost the other two lanes, or okay, I have a giant, enormous guy, except that Shadow King took away all of his power. And it's like, hmm, I almost think that Werewolf is actually balanced. I know that sounds weird, but I almost do. I get why you'd want to nerf it, but I'm almost just like, look, it's fine as long as they keep those other cards around. If they feel the need to change those other cards, then maybe we have to talk about getting rid of Werewolf.
Yeah, I also really just want to say that I really think Werewolf is kept in check, because to make him as good as he is, you actually have to play like we mentioned, like you actually have to play quite correctly,
Mm-hmm.
because like it's really just a matter of like if because he gets on the board so early, right? So if he lands in the wrong lane at the wrong time, you get shanked, you get Shadow King without initiative. Like that's super important. So
Yeah.
actually planning where your Werewolf goes like on almost every turn, because board space is also a consideration, is quite important. So card is powerful but doesn't like just get too crazy, because it's actually not super easy to use.
I think he's probably the hardest card in the game, right? Like there's
Yeah,
a prio mind game on both 5 and 6.
even 4
There's
sometimes, right? Yeah,
yeah, I think it's rarer to worry about the Shadow King on there because
yeah.
it's like you're gonna have so many other times to like make the guy bigger. But it's like on both 5 and 6, you have to be extremely concerned with priority because of the Shadow
Hmm.
King, because of the potential for Shang. You have to be concerned with the size of it, and that's all without actually considering how hard he is to play on his own, which is just like, oh my god, the board space is crazy. Do you want to put a
Hmm.
third unit in a lane? Well, you better be okay with them knowing you can't put a werewolf there. Like it is probably the most difficult card to play in Marvel Snap, and I think that
It is.
it eventually will get nerfed, but it is held in check by that and by Shadow King. So, how'd that Conquerors event go?
Yeah, no, I just wanna this topic is just for me to like say
Oh yeah,
we won Conquerors. Thanks for voting for me, and thanks for getting thanks for having faith in me and getting you guys the devlog. So this event I actually think it was run like better than the previous one. And the format is also better. I really think that a lot of like what I did for this event was like why I won was because I practiced a lot for this, and also I got a bit lucky, let's be real, because like at the end of the day it was a bit of a ladder grind fest at the start, and no matter how good you are, sometimes you just hit the wrong matchups. You like you only have like 2 hours to like
yeah.
dig yourself out of a hole into like a top 4 position, and no matter how good you are, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So for me, I think I ran like decently well, and like I didn't really hit any really too bad off spots to secure my top 4, and then top 4 was battle mode, and I was confident. So in general, this event I feel like it was very smooth sailing for me. I do want to give a shout out to some of my opponents who gave me some really very fun moments. I don't know if you guys saw the one where Felicity generated a random blob to destroy me. Thankfully she didn't snap. There was 2 cubes. And Bings, shout out to Bings. Bings, I know he's been trying to like get way better at the game recently, and he had one game. He's the only person, by the way, fun fact, I didn't never say this before. He's the only person in this tournament that took a 4-cuber off me that I didn't expect to lose. Yeah, he's the
Yo.
only person. Yeah,
Did he
so I played the
Galactus
game
you?
versus. Yeah, sorry.
Did he Galactus you?
No, he actually made some really big brain like play whereby I didn't think he would like play into that lane, and he did, and it was like I just died, that kind of thing. So yeah, I lost a 4-cuber where I thought I was very sure I would win, so I stayed, and then Bings just like owned me that game. So shout out to Bings. So like this tournament has like, quite a bit of interesting things that happened to me, including winning with Loki versus Johnson Cerebro in top card. That was
I
crazy.
saw
That was
that. I was like, oh man, I do not like
so
Lambie's chances
difficult.
here. Like, I was like,
So
that matchup.
difficult.
It's actually something
I
I
think
talked
my
about like before the matchup
yeah.
happened. I was like, is he just gonna pick Cerebro and knows Lambie's gonna pick Loki? Oh god.
Yeah.
It was scary.
It's like okay. The thing is, I kind of had a feeling he had a counter there because he would do this kind of things. But yeah, in my mind, it's like, all right, if he really just goes for Cerebro, I'm just gonna like I said, like we mentioned earlier in the video, it's a comfort pick for me, Loki, at this point. Like I know how to play this deck into everything, even the Cerebro. And I did get a bit lucky as well because I know the most epic moment was I had a super early 4-cuber versus him where I did Rogue versus Iron Man, and then I Mystique the Iron Man, and I was just like, okay, 4 cubes, let's
For
go.
free. Oh,
Yes.
it was very slick, yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Yeah.
talk
So.
about the Gamma Lab in the finals?
Oh, yeah, that was also so sick. Like there was a finals game where the first location was Bar with No Name, then it was Sinister London, and I was like, okay, this is already very weird. And then at the final one was Gamma Lab. So those were all very weird locations to play together. But the good thing was I was the token deck, the 1-cost deck, and my opponent was the Sandman deck. So this was one of the few times you just go full Gamma Lab. I played 4 units in four cards in Gamma Lab and just said like there's no way he wins. And there was really no way they win because it was a Sandman deck, right? So it was like Bar with No Name, Sinister London, and 48 power on the right for me. And they were a Sandman deck. So they probably lost on turn 3 already. It was for 4 cubes. Yeah. And that was like okay, we snapped into the perfect set of locations. So sometimes you just run good. Like I don't think I'm any lesser of a player, obviously, but sometimes when things line up perfectly for you, you take it and you just roll with it. And I think this tournament, a lot of things lined up very nicely for me. In terms of like locational RNG into matchups, except the Johnson one, that was a bit scary. But other than that, like most of it lined up perfectly, and then yeah, we won. So yeah, actually, honestly, this topic is just really me sharing some of my experiences through the event, and yeah, thank you for giving me this time to share this with you guys, and also thank you for supporting me once again. We won. That's it.
Oh, I pointed the wrong way. Let's go! Yeah.
No, I found it the wrong way. Yes, thank you.
No, seriously, man, I'm so happy for you. I was so nervous because during the semis, I had Alex on and Alex coach you, and I made a joke. I was watching, and I made a joke about how like I've seen Johnson do the 9-cube comeback before, and he was like, you realize if Lambie loses, then it's your fault. And so I was like, oh my god, I jinxed him. No one clipped this. And so I'm very glad you got through that matchup. So I was like, that's already a bad matchup. He doesn't need the jinx on top of it. He does not, he does not need me talking about Johnson running it back. Oh yeah, no, like I was very cognizant of that. Is it just me? Just weird question. Does it feel to you like Johnson's a better player when snapping isn't involved?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yes, right?
Yes,
like when his back is against the wall and he can just play to his outs, he's unbelievable. Like,
yeah, he's very good at doing this thing. I did it once, like on televised like matches before versus Dan. You know Dan?
Yeah.
In Creator Clash UK, whereby you just basically you throw when you have no concerns other than winning the game, you just mentally zone in on like finding the weirdest ways to win. And like basically when I was like 9-2 versus him, right? I lost 2 games back to back versus him because he just found the line whereby like the perfect placement of cards, the perfect placement of cards. So yeah, I think, and also this is just fun fact, but like I know Johnson's snapping patterns for the longest time already. So like he didn't realize that I knew. So like he was snapping the same way he's been snapping since Queen Jet Thanos. So I knew what he was gonna do, and that helped me a bit. But obviously, well, if he wants to know, I can share it with him. Since he hasn't asked, I know his tell, guys. I know the tell.
Oh my god, brutal. All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Remember, subscribe to the Lambie series. He's the best Marvel Snap player in the world. That's it. That's all I was going to say. It's your turn.
Okay, yes. Thank you guys for being here. And thank you guys for liking and commenting and subscribing. If you want to check out more of 8 Cubes, you can check it out on KMBest channel on the next one. And then it'll be back to me again, and back to KM and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you get the idea. All right, bye.